Good morning. It rained again. It's pretty much too wet to do any field work whatsoever. So instead of, trying to do some ripping this winter time, I'm gonna unhook that today and change the oil, get that tractor ready to go for spring. One thing about it though, this grain truck just keeps showing up here. It's not my grain truck. It's got corn in it though. It's actually a friend of mine. He's the same one that has that sprayer. We go together and use that. His equipment will probably be in these videos some. I do use this truck every now and then. Just when it's hard to get a semi places, if he's not using this truck, then I'll just go steal it from him. So right now he's got it parked under a shed because it's a dry place to put it. But it's in here with everything else. So today on the 7140, I would like to get the oil changed, fuel filters changed, check the oil in the hubs on both sides there, check the tire pressure, make sure all that's good to go, and then unhook that ripper. And then I've got a full set of front weights that needs to go on the front as well, and probably bring it back out here and hook up to the disc. Cold starts. It actually fired up really easy. That could use some attention as well. I forgot that this thing has a coolant leak. I've got a hose clamp that, the hose is dry rotted. It needs some attention. Stand to be cleaned up. I plan on cleaning everything up before next spring, but I don't really have a heated shop to do it in, and when the shop's heated, there's no drains, no water out there, so it's probably not going to get cleaned up until it's a lot more than that. Last year at the Farm Machinery Show, I picked up some LED lights for this thing. I love the look of them, but I love them even more at night because you can see all the way across the mile-long field. That's pretty cool. I need to get them on the bottom, the cab right there, and I'm going to put them on the back as well. And I think I'm going to put them on the 9330 as well. It doesn't have any LEDs on it at all. I'd also like to polish out the chrome and that exhaust. That would make it look a lot better. If you guys know of any products that would be good to do that, let me know. Definitely want to put some LED lights on the back of this thing as well. Hammer time. Well, I'm 2 pins unhooked for 3. The other one's in a bind, and I'm really wishing I would have used a quick hitch about now. Well, that's unhooked. But yeah, if anybody needs a bush hog or basically anything you see there, let me know. All right, let's do this. That right there, that would be my antifreeze leak. So this tractor here has an 8.3 Cummins in it. This motor is turning about 250 horse. It's turned up just a little bit, but from the factory, I think they all ran a little bit over what they claimed they did. I think they all had a little bit more power than that, but this one's been turned up a little bit on top of that. It's got fluid in the front tires, the inside tires on the back, and then got a full rack of weights somewhere over here, right there, along with a whole lot of junk in this shop. And that's a project this winter that I'd like to get done before spring. Just cleaning out all this stuff, getting rid of stuff that's from 50 years ago for equipment that's not even on the farm anymore, and just making room for stuff that, we would actually use. The cover off right there for the air filter. Check it out, make sure it's clean, which it looks clean, but I'm gonna blow it out anyways just because I got it out. Per usual, I can't pull an oil plug on anything without getting oil everywhere. works out though. Good thing is this tractor ran long enough unhooking that ripper that the oil's nice and warm and coming out easily. So the next step is going to be the filter, and we have plenty of those. The nice thing about this is this tractor has an 8.3 Cummins in it, and so does the 9330. So all the filters are the exact same. So anytime I buy one filter, buy two, then you got one for both tractors. Spin this one off. So when I pulled the old filter off from there was just enough oil in it that I overflowed that, and now I have a mess on the ground. I swear I can never change the oil without making a mess. Go ahead and stick the plug back in. It's done draining, so tighten that up. A lot like the Clintons, I can just throw dirt over my mistakes and cover them up. So now I'm going to check the hours on this thing. It is just shy of 5,000. It'll probably break 5,000 hours this year. So this tractor's still got a lot of life left in it. The hours down on all the filters that I changed, just so I know last time they were changed and when they're going to need changed again. This tractor takes about 5 gallons of oil, so about 5 trips with a jug. Check the dipstick and top it off. I always put a little bit more in than what the dipstick calls for, because by the time it fills up the oil filter and all that, it takes a little more than what you actually dump in and see on the dipstick initially. It's hard to see because it's new oil, but oil is just over the full mark on this, so I'm going to call that good. It should be enough to fill the filters. I'll run it a little bit and double check, but should be good to go. All of our motor oil and hydraulic oil is just the C&H oil. Well, I guess it's New Holland brand, but it all comes from Blesh Brothers up in Odin. They're great guys to deal with. Highly recommend them. So I was walking around the tractor and realized by just pure luck, that arrow is perfect, and this is totally sideways. Now, it says to be straight down, but it can be straight up too, as long as this is about 90 degrees, then check it and make sure it's got oil in it. Nothing came out when I pulled the plug out, so I had to add just a little bit, but it wasn't enough that I was worried about it, you know, leaking heavily or anything. So you definitely do want to keep oil in these though. If you don't, they are very, very expensive. I think they're about $5 grand a piece to have them rebuilt, so it's not something I want to go wrong. So you guys get to see the first tube of grease that I put through my new toy. Now I'm pretty excited to use this thing, pretty excited to have this thing. It's got a 2-speed trigger on it, and then it's got a dial to preset how many pumps you give every time you pull the trigger. So this thing is definitely gonna make greasing a heck of a lot easier. I also am a die-hard Milwaukee fan. Just about every electric tool I have is Milwaukee. I love them. Good price. I've had to warranty one out before. They were super quick about getting it back to me. Another thing I really like is Schaefer grease. I use Schaefer grease here. This is the extreme pressure grease. It's better for pins and things like that. I don't really put it in bearings, more for pins, like on the backhoe, skid steers, things like that. The front axles of tractors. It's better grease for that. Does a really good job. Schaefer, it's a little bit on the pricier side, but you definitely get what you pay for. Now, another thing I might add with the Schaefer grease is that since we started using Schaefer grease on the combine, there have been hardly any bearings go out on that thing. We're used to, they would go out all the time. Now, that speaks numbers for me. I'd rather pay a couple bucks more for a tube of grease than I would to pay for bearings all the time. Not to mention the downtime it costs you, and just, I grease things all the time, but if anything, I over-grease. But Schaefer grease, Milwaukee grease gun, it's gonna be a good year this year, starting 2020 out right. Another cool thing about this grease gun is the end on it will actually lock on to the grease fittings on here, which are kind of hard to see, but will actually lock on there, which for this job doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but greasing the combine, things like that, where you're got your hands over your head, things like that, you don't really have to hold on to it, so that makes it nice. I've got my dial turned to 10 here, give them 10 pumps a piece. And like I said, this thing will just lock right on there, and 10 pumps and it's done. And so yeah, this grease gun, it's pretty awesome. And if you don't have one, you should definitely get one. And if you already have one, well, you should buy two, because gotta have a nice clean cab to start the year out with. That's much better. It's like new in here again. Oh yeah, that's better. Much, much better. Now that the cab is clean, need to get a radio and some speakers to put in this thing, because if it's getting used for what I think it's going to get used for next spring, I want a Bluetooth radio in here, because this is where I'm going to live. Well, for the first time in a long time, it's actually sunny out, and it's warm. By warm, I mean it's 50 degrees, but it's not raining and it's not windy, so I'll take it. I'm loading some more beans out. The middle bin's empty. That one's half empty. That one's still full. And I've got 2 more bean bins to load out after this, and then 3 bins of corn to finish up. That's another full load. It's still really, really sloppy out here. My biggest concern right now is the fact these fields are already starting to green up, and it's February, and there's no freeze in sight right now. The fact that this ground that's already been worked, I had no intentions of putting a spring burn down. Now, that's going to be another $10, $15 an acre if I do have to spray this come spring and then work it versus just working it. So I really don't want to do that. I am going to burn down all my no-till ground, but as far as the stuff that's already been worked, it's getting a little concerning with no freeze in sight. So being that it's winter time right now, there's not a whole lot going on. Just loading grain out, doing odd and end little jobs. But I do have some new content that should be coming out probably next week. I'm going to do a lot of equipment shopping this week. Going to look at a couple pieces tomorrow. So I'll keep you guys posted and should have some new content on that. Just remember to hit the like button down below, and feel free to subscribe.